I'll say, tell me how you're finding jobs and applying. I applied to 400 jobs, hitting the cold apply button on LinkedIn, just getting rejections and no interviews. Like that is super, super common. It is not good enough to have a LinkedIn or resume that summarizes well what you do. Oftentimes they're not trying to ask a gotcha question where if you don't have direct experience, so it's just a fail. They would love for you to offer an alternative, something in a similar domain.
Hi everyone, I'm Devon Coombs. I'm a CPA, MBA, and top financial advisor for Google Cloud. But when I'm not doing that, I'm here on Ambition Aligned, where I interview purpose-driven professionals who are making an impact in the world. Today, I'm talking to my good friend Larry, who has over 15 years of experience as a technical hiring manager at companies like Snap and Amazon, where he was even a Raise the Bar interviewer. And today, he's left those companies to be an executive coach who guides professionals onto those next big steps: promotions, new jobs, career coaching, you name it. Today, he's going to give you his top tips to you, and it's going to be awesome. This is extremely valuable content today, so I encourage you to watch the whole thing through and click subscribe. I'm stuck. I want to get a job in tech. Help me. Help me break into tech. I want a better job or I want a promotion.
First of all, there's a mindset thing. There's a lot of demoralization that can happen when people realize that they have the confidence to do their job. If somehow they could just magically start at their next job on day one, they would know what to learn, what to do, and within 30 days, they'll be like successful and running at full velocity. And people have the confidence around that. But there is a mindset thing. There's a lot of demoralization that can happen when you're going in the interviews, because the interview is a whole separate ball game. It requires a different skill set, and it's super difficult. It might be more difficult for experienced professionals than someone right out of school, for instance, or someone early career, because it should be, hey, they should just understand where I've worked and my experience and know that I can do the job. Why do I have to go through this game of answering hypothetical questions, coming up with a resume, and it just feels like a song and dance, and I'm just not finding traction. Like, this is a really common story. I'm an experienced professional. I know I can kick butt in my job, but when I go on interviews, it's just, the message is just not getting across. And so one is like, change your mindset. Interviews are a different skill set. Let's treat it like a job to learn that skill set and practice that skill set. And if you come with it with that frame of mind, you'll be generating a list of to-dos, and you'll be setting aside time to work on these things each day. So a lot of what I do is just spending time getting, like, does someone have the right mindset where they're willing to put in the work to play this game of interviewing?
Yeah, it's really interesting. I'm seeing that a bit too when I'm coaching people, of executives coming in looking for executive positions, or senior people coming in for executive positions at top companies. And they're surprised.
Mhm.
They're saying, why don't they just get it? Why isn't it easier? And I think, like you said, they forget when
Right.
you're getting your first job, you're working really hard at it. You're doing interviews, internships, all of this. It's its own skill. Getting a job is a different skill than performing well at the job. Is that what you're saying? Yeah.
Right. That's exactly what I'm saying. In early career, you might come in with the right amount of insecurity, which gives you the right amount of motivation to study for the interview. By the time, maybe there's a sense of entitlement when you have a certain amount of experience and you know you can do the job well, that you have to overcome a little resistance to get back to a learning mindset and take it seriously. There's another factor at play when you go on executive level interviews. A lot of times there's a lot less structure to the interviewing process. These are unicorn-like positions. You're going for early career software, the recruiter will tell you, you're going to have an hour where you'll be tested on this, an hour you'll be tested on this. The executive level, you're going to meet with the hiring manager for a culture fit interview. Then you're going to meet with a few other potential partners and stakeholders, and it'll be culture fit. And the structure is not coming across. Therefore, what are the expectations are not clear. Therefore, what you should be saying and what will make a difference to say. It's just, there's just no rules, and it's a lot less clear to people. And online advice is so troubling to me because it's just very lightweight and non-specific. And sometimes it's specific and it has the illusion of being valuable, but really not. And my favorite example is the STAR method. If you don't, how should I talk about my experience in job interviews? Use the STAR method as given as the absolute example, like learn the star, which is, for those who don't know, talk about a specific experience that you've had, an accomplishment that you've had, and talk about it using the STAR framework, which is first give the situation, then talk about the task you were assigned, then give actions that you did to complete that task, and then finally give the results. And it's just troubling if that is someone's complete preparation, is learning the STAR method for job interviews. But anyway, to give people a break, you're an experienced professional, you're successful. Why should you have to go through this interviewing game? That's one bit to overcome, and the other is you're about to go into a pretty unstructured interview process. What is expected of you is a difficult thing to wrap your
Okay,
head
so
around.
first, I'm coming in the door. I'm saying I want a better job. First, it sounds like get me in the mindset of, hey, you're actually gonna have to put in some work. This isn't gonna be a slam dunk. This isn't just you're awesome and your ego is gonna get fed more. You're probably gonna get denied a bit and get ready for rejection and get ready to learn a new skill or flex a muscle you haven't flexed in a while. What's next? What do they have to
Yeah.
do next?
Devin, I realize now that I might be skipping a whole category of things. So we're talking interview prep, and maybe we should just continue on that and get to the end. But if we have time, there's also getting those
Well, let's start it.
interviews to
Okay,
begin with, and that's how you're
that's a
putting
good
yourself out
point.
there. Yeah. So
Yeah,
where would you?
let's do that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Where
let's
would you
start
like
with
to
that's a great
start?
point. So coming to you and saying, I'm a pretty reputable person. I've had a few jobs. I'm looking for something better. How do I even get my foot in the door? What's going on? What do I
Right.
do? I'm submitting a crap ton of resumes, but I'm
Right.
not getting any leads. I'm
Yes.
not getting any callbacks.
That's right. And I will say, right. And I will look at your LinkedIn. It'll be pretty good. I will always have specific things I can help them improve, but there's not going to be the huge difference maker they want it to be. And I'll say, let's look at your resume. And it'll be pretty good. And I'll give a few bits of advice and it'll get things better. And then I'll say, tell me how you're applying, how you're finding jobs and applying. And then, oh my gosh, it'll be this answer. I applied to 400 jobs, hitting the cold apply button on LinkedIn. There are a couple places where I knew somebody there, so I got a warm referral. And then, but it wasn't, they weren't hiring for the position that I'd be good at. So it's basically, I'm just getting rejections and no interviews. And that's like I don't mean to make fun, like that is super, super common. It is not good enough to have a LinkedIn or resume that summarizes well what you do. There are specific things to do to optimize those. You should have a very clear about me. So when it finally gets to a human, they understand what you're about and the kind of things you're capable of doing. You should have very specific things about your accomplishments without revealing confidential data, confidential information with your company. But if you can provide data about how you got a key metric from 4% to 20%, that's wonderful. But in general, you should be echoing as much from the job descriptions out there as possible on the resume and your LinkedIn, so that the keyword matching on the machine scanning will work to get it to a human. And then you want a nice, clear objective statement so a human is impressed as well. That's resume and LinkedIn.
Yep.
Networking is the thing that is missing for most people. And most people know this, and it's just so difficult for them to get over the hump. So networking from two angles, networking from inside out and from outside in. Okay, so let's start with inside out. You're looking for jobs and you see job listings. So you're starting there. This is the inside out. So how do you work backwards from a listing to where you can use your network? The obvious answer is, what first degree connections do I have? People who work there. A non-obvious one is, what are the second degree connections? LinkedIn, when you do a company search, you can pretty easily see what are your second degree people connections. Basically, who do you know that knows somebody that works there? Having and sending and working that angle, basically asking the person you know to introduce you to the person at that company, is easy in terms of effort and the time it takes, but difficult in overcoming the resistance. Like, is this person going to want to help me? I think if someone reaches out to you for help, even if you knew them 10 years ago and haven't spoken since, if they thought highly of you at the time, they will still think highly of you. And in general, people want to help. So that's maybe that's all the encouragement you will need to send those messages in the future. to ask someone you know to introduce you to someone you don't know. And then what's that conversation look like? Hi, we've never met before. I saw this job listing. I'm not, I would just like to know, I'm interested. I may apply for this job. What's it like to work there? What's the best part about working there? What's the worst part about working there? Do you happen to work um, anywhere close to where you know anything about the team that is hiring? And then that's it. And you hope, and then just, you've made a connection. It would be nice if they said, let me tell you, they will volunteer. I can refer you if you want, but I want you don't have to come from this place of, it might be difficult to come from this place of asking for a favor. So I'm saying you don't even have to ask for a favor. What's it like to work there? Thanks for this information. I really appreciate it. By the way, if you're comfortable, fast tracking my application, that'd be great. But if not,
Yeah,
no
I mean,
worries.
so this,
Okay.
so
That's
okay,
outside.
outside in, and before
Right.
we get into there, I'm curious. I just want to pause. So
That's
inside out,
inside
we're
out.
starting by looking at the job and then looking for who we might be connected to there, or if we know anyone who might be connected to anybody and asking for introductions. I'm just recapping. And then
Yes.
not leading with, hey, can you get me a job? More leading with, hey, can you just tell me a little bit about it? Can you tell me, connecting with the person?
Yeah.
And then most likely once you do that and they find you're looking for work, they'll submit a warm referral. Is that right? And how effective
Exactly.
is this compared to the resume optimization that you said? And like you don't have to, we don't have to cite literature here or anything. It's just from a percentage, if you were to
Yeah.
get someone in the door,
Yeah.
how much effort would you say they put on networking and how much would that impact their careers versus optimizing their resume in LinkedIn and applying, spamming resumes?
I think it's multi-pronged and you never know which is going to make the difference. But but networking is a lot more effective. I say you never know what can make the difference because it might be you are the perfect candidate for a job and you don't know anybody there and you submit your resume. And because you have a well-written resume, you got the interview and you're in. So I don't want to say don't pay attention to it. But in general, optimizing your resume in LinkedIn is pretty easy and you should just do it. And there's a bunch of free advice out there on how to do it. Networking is hard for most people, but most times it is the most effective way to get a job. Sometimes without even having to go through a job interview.
Yeah, I think that's what I'm seeing a lot too. And I just want to echo everything you're saying is spot on. I can't tell you how many people I see who are saying that they're interested in finding work, but then all they do is do the easy apply on LinkedIn. And then when you start talking about networking, there's nothing. Or it might be just spamming people. Can you look at my resume and can you submit it? Right? It's no connecting. So that's really helpful thinking from the
Right.
inside out. Tell me about outside in. What's outside in?
Yeah. So outside in is where you start with your network, letting people know that you're interested in finding your next opportunity. And this takes a bit more, usually a little more resistance to overcome, but can be so effective. And it's a little more effort because just the number is greater usually there's hundreds of people, your potential list. So I just say get an Excel spreadsheet, get a list going of people that you once knew or you knew. And it's anybody who thought well of you. That's it. It's anybody you think you made a positive impression on. Doesn't have to be a close relationship. It doesn't have to be someone who's hiring right now. It doesn't have to be someone who works at a company that you want to work for. And the message is short and sweet. Text is better than email, than LinkedIn. Whatever they're most likely to respond to. Hey, it's been a while. I remember fondly of the time we X, Y, and Z, fill in the blank, something personal. I wanted to let you know I'm seeking my next opportunity. These are the kind of things that I'm interested in, the kind of things I'm good at. I'm looking for a new role where I can do ABC. If you know of anything, let me know. Otherwise, it'd be great to catch up. Be great if you're local. Have coffee. Hope you're well. That's really it. There's a key thing I would ask. Actually, the key bullet is that in addition to if you know of any opportunities, right after that should be, if you know of anybody that might know of other opportunities, I'd appreciate an intro.
Mm.
And that like is a power bar for your network. It just exponentially extends your network. You're reaching out to someone and now you're saying, if you know of anybody else I should be talking to, I would appreciate that connection. So that's it in a nutshell. It's hard. It's easy and hard to do at the same time, but you should be sending out these messages like 5 a day, and it should get to the hundreds that you've
It's such a
sent
trip,
out.
Larry. It makes so much sense to me. And I'm trying to remember, like, even just 10 years ago, when I was looking for work, it was all in person. I felt like there was stuff online, but right, like,
Uh,
and what you're recommending is just this new digital age that a lot of people need to get used to, that a lot of networking happens digitally now. And we don't have as many in-person events. So, for example, when I'd find my old jobs, you kind of complain, you drink a beer with someone after work, and they're saying, hey, this other person I know is hiring. I'd love to introduce you, right? That was much more natural and happened a lot 10, even 5 years ago before COVID.
yes.
We're not seeing that as much
Yes.
anymore, and it's now happening electronically. So if you're, especially, at least in my age range, mid 30s, mid 40s, you got to get used to this new phase, is what you're saying, right? Is you need to be comfortable reaching out to people that you used to know, your friends, family, coworkers, anyone that you left a positive impression on, and then you're going to tell them that you're looking. Hey, I'm looking for some work. Do you know anybody? Right, and that's your outside in. Am I saying that right?
You're saying it right, and I love the observation about that. We're just a lot more opportunities to have these same conversations in person. Uh, a little bit ago, I would also say the people you're likely to hang out with is a smaller group than anybody you've ever known, and these probably not 5 years ago, but now the market is really tough. It'll take that extra effort. You might have to reach into your deep network, whereas before your group that you might come across in person, probably enough, right? But now there's a lot more competition. Hopefully by the time people hear this podcast, the cycle, the pendulum has swung towards an employee driven market. But right now it's an employer driven market. So reaching out to your extended network and getting comfortable with the digital thing it's incumbent upon most
Yeah,
job seekers.
it's interesting. It's a new skill flex. Say, no, these are already tools I haven't thought of this way.
Yeah.
So this has already been extremely helpful here. And I see how having someone like you in their corner could be really valuable from just trying to get in the door. Right. And so is there anything else I'm missing? It's like, how does someone get in the door to at least land the interviews?
There is a way, I do some work with the company interviewing.io, and the founder, Aline Lerner, had a great blog post. She posted on LinkedIn and she posted on the I.io blog, interviewing.io blog. So if you Google it, you will be able to find this. She had a great tip for, okay, you don't know anybody, you don't have any first or second degree connections, but you want to email the hiring manager. And it's a wonderful, she talks about third-party databases you can subscribe to. Say, here's the job listing, find me who the hiring manager is, get me their email address.
That's cool.
And it's really interesting. There's useful data there. I haven't tried it personally, but I do want to put this out there. And I'm not taking any credit for it. But if you're willing, if there's a job you're just like, this is the job for me, I need to find a way to connect the hiring manager, and my network or network of networks isn't cutting it, there are third-party databases you can use to help. And there are good tips in that article for what to say in that email.
Yeah, that's a great tip too. I've seen even on LinkedIn, sometimes they'll show the hiring manager. And I can't tell you how many people I've talked to where I show them that. And then I ask, have you reached out to them? And they'll say, no, I just applied. It's like, who the person is, just reach out. Just go talk to the hiring manager. They're going to be the right people. Right. So,
right. And it's something psychological, because I bet if you ask that same person, should you reach out to the hiring manager? They'll say yes. Like they know, people know. It's just hard.
Maybe we stop for that for a second before we talk about interviewing, because I think that's a natural next segue is, okay, as a client, someone's coming to you and they're saying, hey, what do I do? And you tell them all the networking tips. You tell them exactly what they need to do to land an interview. I'm guessing you're going to find out a lot of those people don't execute, probably from some mental block, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, yeah, the people that I work, yeah, there's a before and after. They're not executing before they work with me. If they're committed enough to show up and work with me, that it's not difficult to overcome the resistance, and they'll
So what
start
is that
executing.
resistance and how do you get them over it? Yeah. How
So
do you get them over that resistance?
yeah, yeah, yeah. So I think it's about goal setting, because I think it's about making progress when you're not motivated to make that progress. And this is an environment, and when you're in transition in your career, this is a time of highs and lows every day. A lot of days will be all lows, and it'll be, and you're accountable only to yourself. There's no one hovering over you, assigning you work and saying it's due in the next 7 days. So you're accountable only to yourself, and demoralization is a high probability, are likely to be demoralized a good part of the time. So I ask people, what are ways that you could work and make progress on the things you know you should be doing, even when you're not in the mood to do it? Like, what are ways you can do it? It's different for everybody. Um, and common answers are, I'm just going to make a very specific set of tasks, and I'm going to do some tasks each day, so that when I wake up in the morning and I have these 2 hours to work from that I've set aside, um, I don't have to do any thinking. I know it's send this email to this person, send this LinkedIn to this person, look on this job board and apply to 10 jobs. It's about making low thinking concrete tasks and holding yourself accountable to making some progress each day. But the answer is different for everybody. How can you make progress? It is usually about time blocking it so that there's a start and a finish time. And it's about removing any ambiguity and having a list of to-dos that you just go through, no matter what kind of mood
Yeah,
you're
it's great. I like how you brought it to the behavioral. Because a lot of times when I talk to people, they'll bring up some mental blocks of, hey, I just don't feel confident, or there's some other aspect. But the only way you get through that is the behavioral stuff, right? Is, hey, you got to just hit the list. You got to build a confidence through your getting in the
Yes.
reps, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It would, because I feel like I know where job seekers are coming from. I've been there. I'm not going to change their mind and make searching for jobs a very, happy world where I love doing it. I wish I could do it full time. That's not going to happen. So it is about how can we move forward until we're in the dream job, and then it's all, um, it, I don't know. I don't know where, I don't really have a nice button to put on that, but like, let's get through this job search transition phase and let's just do it. And it'll be faster the more quickly we can move through our
I
to-do
like
list.
that. I like that. But just like, hey, the sooner we get to work here, the sooner we'll be done with the process. If you hate it, then that just means you should work faster. You need the job eventually, right? Like,
You're trying to get from point A to point B. This is the transition. Let's find a way to get through this transition. And
it
so you
reminds me
get
of
you to
something
point B.
one of my old bosses used to say, where it's like, if you're gonna make me eat crap, don't spoon food it to me. Like just eat it all in one bite. Yeah. So exactly.
Right?
Okay, cool. Okay, we could already burning through time. I wish we even had more. Maybe we'll talk more in detail sometime about if any questions come up from the audience. But let's go to interviewing. Okay, they listened to you. They actually executed. They got over their mental blocks or whatever's blocking them. They're behaviorally executing. They have a few interviews lined up. Now what?
Yeah. It's another perception change. A lot of people think that I don't see like too much of a structure for this upcoming interview. The recorder told me just who I'm meeting with and very vague things that we're talking about, if anything. And I have no idea what they're going to ask. And I go on Google and I see what are the top 100 job interview questions. I'm like, okay, yeah, but I can prepare for those, but I have no idea which they're going to ask. And the mindset I ask people to have, or the thing I remind them of, no matter what the question, you have a limited set of stories from your personal experience that you're going to talk about. And it's not really limited like in that you did something wrong. It's just that we just have a finite set of accomplishments that we're proud of and we're going to talk about in the interview. So I asked them to approach it from that perspective. what are the experiences and accomplishments that I am really hoping the interviewer asks about? Let me take the time to prepare those stories so that I can talk about them really effectively, really concisely, so I'm conveying great communication skills at the same time that I'm conveying my accomplishment. Let me polish those stories. And then, so this is what I ask people to focus on. I give them a set of writing prompts. For instance, tell me about a time you delivered something with big impact, overcoming hurdles. Tell me about a time you went deep into a problem that, or a system that was just really complex that took some time to understand. Tell me about a time you did that and what was your approach? Tell me about a time you had a disagreement. Was that, I'm not going to give them 100 possible job interview questions. I'm going to give them the 8 writing prompts that is going to give them a broad set of stories and help them remind them of the stories that they're just hoping they ask about. And then no matter what question they're asking, they're going to pull from this set of stories. If the stories are meaty enough, if the stories, and if the story is rich with data and rich with actions you took, and you can talk about the context in a way um, that communicates very quickly what the situation was to someone who wasn't there, and you can talk about your short and long-term results, that is so effective. And when you have a set of meaty stories you're going with job interview, no matter what the question is, most likely you'll be able to talk about these stories, not verbatim as if you memorize, but you'll be able to talk about the slice of each story, the dimension of the story that the interviewer is asking about. If he's talking about conflict, you can pull from a story. If he's talking about delivering something big, you might be able to talk about that same story, but through a different dimension. So you're still improvising, but you're pulling from a set of stories that you've really spent time thinking about how to tell effectively. And then instead of improvising 100% of the interview, you might get one question where none of your stories apply, so you're thinking in the moment. But then that's only a small amount of time during the interview rather than your whole interview for people who just wait.
I think that's great feedback. Me being at Google and giving interviews, I see that way too often, where they go into the STAR method. I even hear people quote it out loud saying, oh, well, I'll tell you the situation that happened. And they quote something from their resume and there's no substance. I like what you said, meaty. And we are such story-based people. Everyone has some kind of cool accomplishment they've done in their life. If you could just name a few of them,
yes,
and they're slightly relevant to the question being asked, that's going to be way better than trying to come up with some formulaic, inauthentic answer, right? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah. I go a little deeper. I have my, STAR plus way. There's a structure to it, but the most important thing is have a meaty story, and it's not whether you're using STAR to tell it or not. The story is the important.
Yeah. I love it.
The story told effectively.
What would you say for sometimes people are going through the interview and it's clear that they don't have the experience for the role. So let's say you're in the interview and you're getting some questions and you're realizing, oh, wait a second, I don't have any of this background. What is it? What would you recommend to that person, in that interview?
Oh, to be honest, you don't want to trigger someone's BS detector. No, so you want to be honest. But there's different ways of saying I don't know. I like the yes and approach where you're saying, I don't have experience that directly answers that, but I can think of something similar. Do you want to hear a time where I did this? So you're proposing an alternative. Oftentimes the interviewer just is trying to find out your best accomplishments, so give me some data to grade you on. Then oftentimes they're not trying to ask a gotcha question where if you don't have direct experience, so it's just a fail. It might just be, they would love for you to offer an alternative, something in the similar domain. Anyway, that would be nice if you can. But what's another alternative? Just saying, I think we can pretty much offer an alternative. I think that's the key. But be honest.
I like the honesty because that happens to me. I'll see it when I'm interviewing somebody, and when they start BSing, That's so true. It's something everyone talks about behind the scenes. Is like, oh, did your BS meter go off? Yeah, it went off. This guy is just faking it. Or
Yeah,
other common tools that
that's
I
right.
find I'm curious and maybe helpful for your practice is like deflecting when you ask a question and they say, "Oh yeah, I've done that. By the way, you have a nice guitar over there. Do you play guitar?" Or them trying to change it. You're like, "Okay, buddy, I gotta get where this is going." But just being honest, saying, "I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't. I'm sorry, I don't have that experience, but I like the offer. But I have something tangential. I have something similar. Would this be helpful to you, or would this help you?" Because to your point, as an interviewer, we're just trying to see what relevant experience you have, right? And it's okay. Like what you said before is this is part of a process, right? So if this isn't the right job for you, it's okay. You're going through this process. You'll find other ones. Right.
Yeah, and as an interviewer from that perspective, like sometimes, tell me about a time you built a team from scratch. You had to hire and plan a new team. So I'm fine with an answer that says, yeah, I just haven't had the opportunity to do that. But let me tell you about a time and so if they don't even offer an alternative, I'll say, no, yeah, no problem. How about a time you had to change the direction of an existing team? You had to bring a team in completely, uh, priorities changed and now we're working on something different, or a time that you implemented a reorg. Tell me about that. Often that answer makes me just as happy.
Yeah.
So I'm not trying to like play a gotcha game. And I think it's important for job seekers to know that most interviewers just try to find what are you bringing to the table, and I'm going to judge you from a holistic picture. There's not going to be one missing checkbox that
Yeah, yeah. Most people want to give you the job once they're in the interview. They don't. They don't want to do 1,000 interviews, right? So they're trying to help you. Yeah, they're trying to help you.
Totally, 100%.
This
Yeah,
is great. So what's next? So then they're going through the interview. Any other tips?
I recommend yeah. I think having a great answer to tell me about yourself is another key thing. Especially for less structured interviewers, that'll be the most common question you'll get. Tell me about yourself, walk me through your resume, why are we here today? And tips for that is, I can just be really brief with this one, but I think reverse chronological is important. I think start with your most impressive, and that usually is your most recent experience, rather than, oh, when I went to school here, and then early career this, and mid-career this, and now I think it start with, oh yeah, well, right now I most recently I worked here and have this impressive role and I accomplished these couple things. Before that I did this. Before that I did this. In general, I'm passionate about X, Y, and Z. And the other tip, I think it's important to turn it around. And even though it's a question that's talking about yourself, I think you should end with, and why I'm interested in this specific opportunity is, I know these people and I've worked with them, or I saw this in the job description, or I'm familiar with this company and I know the kinds of challenges you're facing. I saw this in job description and these challenges really spoke to me. This is why I'm interested in this particular opportunity. And if you I have a question for you about this, like turning it, kind of ending with a question for them would be like the most polished thing in my opinion. But that's at a high level. I think having a good answer to tell me about yourself would
Wait,
really
let's
pay
pause there
dividends.
because you just blew my mind. I never thought about that. Yeah,
Whoa, I blew your mind. I
yeah,
blew
you blew my mind.
Devin's
Yeah,
mind.
I didn't think about the reverse chronological piece and then spinning it into a question.
Mm,
That's something I've never done, and that's a great
mm,
call because gets a little
mm.
long-winded. No one wants to be like, "Oh crap, I got to listen to this guy's whole life story." Like you want to start with
Right,
why is it relevant to them, and it's starting with like, "Here's what I'm doing now. Here's
right.
what I've crushed," and then ending, brushing over the rest, and then ending with, "Here's why it's relevant to you. This is what I know about the job." And can you tell me more about it? Like giving an easy offer or an easy answer or a softball. That's a solid setup, Larry. I never heard that before. That's really good.
Well,
Yeah.
thank you. Yeah, I mean, it's often the first question you'll get asked when you meet an interviewer, and then so your first impression time. Your first impression shouldn't be, especially for experienced professionals, it shouldn't be, I went to this school. My first job was, first impression is, I just accomplished something big at this job. Like that. That's what. So I think that's what drove my thinking on
That's
reverse
awesome. That almost
chronological.
reminds me of like doing YouTube shorts and stuff. It's like you got to grab the attention of that viewer. Yeah, you got to get
Yeah,
that attention of the
yeah.
viewer. Yeah.
No, it's true. It's true. It's true. Like I said, I have my Star Plus approach. It's called H sale, but it's an acronym. But H is headline. Like start with a headline. Like, don't dive into, well, I was working at this company and then this happened and then we had this challenge and then my role was this and this. Like, that's all important. But like, start with, let me tell you about a time this it was the company had the biggest priority. No one figured out, no one knew how we were going to accomplish it, but I figured out a way. Let me tell you that story. Okay, now you can go into, I was at this role. These are the teams I was working with. So first
Yeah, it's like
impression.
going on a
Yeah.
date, right? It's like your dating profile. You're not gonna be like, oh, let me tell you about when all the problems I had with my mother and how she hated me when I was a boy and I had trouble. Like, like you're not
No,
gonna start there. You're gonna start with like, oh, look at me when I was in the best shape of my life and all my accomplishments, right? And so
right.
it's like that. That's a really cool way to look at it. So then what's next? And maybe we're running low on time, so we're gonna probably have to do another session sometime if you're open to it. But how do you close? That's a question I get a lot too. Is now at the end they say, "Do you have any questions for me, sir or ma'am?"
Oh
What
yeah. Oh yeah.
what do you
Yeah.
recommend?
Okay. How much is this, a 1 minute
No,
answer?
we got a few
Yeah, how
minutes.
much
Yeah, we
time
got
do
a few
you said
minutes.
we're okay. But I might be able to even do it in 1 minute. Okay. So questions during the interview should reveal information to you. So you do want information, you do want to ask questions where you're genuinely curious, but they should convey your enthusiasm for the role. You have very important questions, no doubt, about what's in it for you. What are the benefits? What's the career path? How quickly can I get promoted? Um, uh, these types of questions. Do not ask these questions during the interview. Those questions come after you get the offer. Right now, your job is to get the offer. Once you get the offer, now you can ask for follow-up questions with the hiring manager or the recruiter, and you ask your "what's in it for me" questions. So that's at the highest level, what not to ask.
Yeah, like it.
Uh, so what to ask? Questions that you're genuinely curious about that would also convey your enthusiasm for the role. So examples. If I were to join, what do you hope this job would accomplish in the first 30 days? Another question. What's your favorite thing about working here? Another question, which is kind of negative, it's okay. What's your least favorite thing about working here? As long as that's followed, as long as you first ask, what's your favorite thing about working here? And another one is, I noticed this from the job descriptions, really interesting. Could you tell me more about, like, I have a background in this area, I can talk a lot, but I'm really curious how it's applied in this company. So it shows you're you're conveying your interest in the role.
I like it. It makes perfect sense. You're essentially saying, "Hey, I want to recap all of this. Reverse chronologically, go into it, then do your meaty story, and then don't end by asking how much you're going to pay me, how much time off I get, what are the benefits, and instead with real, genuine curiosity about the role, showing enthusiasm, and asking real
Yes.
questions."
Yes. I might have misunderstood your question. I say the close for the tell me about yourself. Yes, take any of those examples questions. Not the what's your favorite part about working here, but say, I know this from job description, or I know this
Yeah.
about the company, or the company made a blog post. Tell me more. So that is important to ask a question. I tried to give advice for at the end of an interview. Usually there's a couple minutes left over.
Oh, that's what
An
I was meant too.
interviewer will
Maybe I
say,
misread
thank
it.
you.
Yeah.
Do you have any questions
Yeah,
for,
yeah, you're
it is
good.
meant that? Okay.
We're on the
We're
same
on the
page.
same
Yeah, you're
page then. It's kind of the same advice either way. It's kind of the same
That's
advice
good. And
either way.
I think it's helpful too not to ramble at the end. Like I've had interviews where then people just keep asking questions and you're trying to close it naturally and it's
Oh
not
yeah.
natural. Like, yeah, asking real
Okay.
questions are useful, right? Again, to the BS meter.
Yeah.
We only got a few minutes left. So I like to do just a rapid fire at the end with everybody, just for a little bit of fun, where I'm going to ask you just a few questions about yourself,
Okay.
if you're comfortable, and then ending with like a piece of words of wisdom. And then if this was helpful to people, we'd love to have you back on and maybe do a deeper dive into, there sounds like a lot more we can talk about. So I'm going to ask just a few. What's your favorite dessert?
Uh, um, Ben and Jerry's ice cream, specifically
Oh,
fish food.
man, I haven't had that in a while. That's so good. That's a really good one. Oh, man. Okay, what's your favorite book you read recently?
Favorite book I read recently. I read two, and recently that stick in my mind. And okay, I'll just go with the Engineering Executives Primer by Will
Okay.
Larson.
I've never heard of it. That sounds fascinating.
Yeah, I mean it's pretty new, um, but it's kind of it's very eye opening. Like, what is the job of an executive, like CTO level? What should you be doing when your whole background has been solving technical problems? And then you've even had some senior level position, so you know how to lead people. But what are the problems that you need to be concerned with when your partners are now other C-level people and you lead the engineering function? It's
Oh, that
fascinating
sounds
book.
it sounds perfect, and it's perfect what you're doing in the executive coaching world, where that's so hard for technical. Happens in finance too. On my side, happens in the technical side where
Okay.
they're really good technically, but now they're not just leading people, but they're managing other leaders, and that's a whole different skill set, right? And
Yes.
yeah, having a coach like you is perfect for that. Okay, I'll keep going with my questions. So, what's your least favorite piece of advice that people give?
Use the STAR method.
You seem a little triggered.
Huh. It's not that there's anything. I mean, I do have a couple of things wrong with the STAR method. Like the word task usually undersells quite a bit what you're actually accomplishing. It's not you're not solving a big problem because you were assigned a task. But my larger part is usually if people advice begins and ends with use the STAR method, and I think it's just one of many pieces of advice to give. But usually when people say use the STAR method, they're like, now you're done. That's all you need to know. So that's why it's my least favorite.
Yeah, makes perfect sense. That's really funny too, especially being the career coaching because that's what you see. I can't tell you how many people I've heard or I've interviewed where I've seen people say, "Well, I'll use the STAR method here. First, the situation." I'm like, "Whoa, this is this is the least authentic thing you could do. You sound like ChatGPT right now."
Right.
So okay,
Right.
I want to end with imagine now you're on the stage. It's going to be your 10-second or 30-second viral YouTube short, and you want to give some really impactful advice. You know, your nugget of wisdom that you're going to sell to the world. Go. No pressure.
Thank God. Thank thank God there's some post production and editing you could do here. My God, you did not tell me this question in advance. So sorry. I repeat the question, please. I can give advice to the world. It's not about me. It's what
Yeah,
advice could I
anything, and
give?
you know, it could be about career coaching too. It's just about what would what sits with you that you think people need to hear right now that would be valuable.
Let's keep it in the theme. I'm going to speak to the job seekers of experienced professional. Hang in there. I've been where you're at. I've been on the other side interviewing, and still everyone is rooting for you no matter what side you're on. It's not as adversarial as you think. Uh, when you're ghosted, it's nothing personal. Plug away every day. There is an end to this, and the end used to come in 30 days. Now it's taking 90 days or a little longer, but you'll find your dream job. Keep at it.
Larry, that's awesome. I'm going to close there, and I hope to have you back on some other time. This was great, man.
Devin,
Thanks.
thank you so much.